Hi everyone, my name is Amelia Lewis and I'm with the English department. This is part one of a two-part lecture of a learning module focusing on language, information, and new technology. So for a little bit of context, this learning module emerges from my attendance at the 2018 E-Learning and Innovative Pedagogies Conference held at St. John's University in New York City. So the focus of the panels that I attended was on technology, access to information, and students and how they interact with this information once they have it. So this learning module will focus on some of the takeaways that I came home with from the conference and how to apply them to thinking about our students in our classrooms today. So the first concept I want to talk about is Dr. Tom Liam Lynch, who is a professor of educational technology at Pace University, and who is now focusing on K through 12 computer science and literacy. He, during his presentation, considered the idea that computer programming is a computational language. And the focus is on language there because a lot of the times we think of computer science as completely separate from humanities. It's completely separate from what we do in an English classroom. But he thought that kind of combining these two subject matters and focusing on the language parts of it can open up new possibilities. So we consider what happens when we break down the boundaries between computers, technology, and the humanities. What happens when we apply what we know about English to computers and coding, and also what can coding and computer science bring to the humanities? So a couple of things that he brought up is the idea that there are hidden languages in technology and computers. So this hidden language is basically the coding that is a part of everything that we do when we're on a computer, but it's not something that most of us understand very well. So there is a certain coding that goes into creating videos. This coding can have information about you, information about the video, information about your location. That is something that even as I make a video or watch a video, it's not something I entirely understand or know where it is coming from. Another example would be Facebook, which is a very timely example, which creates discrete packets of information about every single time that you log on. So these are kind of languages that we often don't think of as languages because they've been relegated to this idea, oh, it's a science, not a language. So that these are hidden languages and pieces of information that are all over the internet and connect to all of us, but very few of us really understand them, and that is true even of students as well. So as technologically advanced as students might be, they don't necessarily understand this better than we do. So Lynch creates something called CS4ELA, which is a nationwide initiative to increase the creative integration of computer science into the English language arts. So some of their stated guiding principles include computer science consists greatly of software, and software consists of human and computer languages. Software might usefully be considered a reader and a writer of the world. Computer code is in fact a literary practice, which suggests it should complement what we know about teaching, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So again, kind of collapsing that barrier that we sometimes have in our minds between thinking about computer science as completely separate from what we do when we're reading and writing, either as students or as teachers, and what we do in the classroom. So one example of this that I actually have linked in the resources for you in the learning module is Lynch actually was doing searches of state constitutions, which state constitutions can be a little bit difficult to read. It's not necessarily meant to be read as a breezy Friday afternoon read. So what he started doing is actually coding the patterns that he saw in the state constitutions. So he's coding them, he's graphing them, and then finally he comes up with an interactive visual representation of these state constitutions that hopefully will, in his words, make it easier for people to access them. So that is kind of another way, like you think of a constitution as something that you would read in a classroom, and it would typically involve sitting down with a hard copy and kind of just going through it together, which not that there is not benefit for that, but thinking about bringing coding and how that can interact and possibly even help readers and writers of the world with some of these texts. So thinking of what they can, the possibilities that open up when you think about them interacting as opposed to separate. So what we can learn from these ideas is that there is a need for fluency in the hidden languages embedded in computers and technology, and that this is the type of language that shapes the world as we know it in a plethora of ways. So again, we don't necessarily think of logging onto Facebook as participating in a language, when really in a lot of ways it is. So a greater need for a fluency in these hidden languages. And then also, kind of on the flip side, thinking of incorporating these elements into how we teach other subjects, such as English. And that can help with fluency in both realms, as well as engaging students. So basically that you can kind of bring these two subject matters together in order to increase the fluency in both English or traditional texts that we read, as well as this kind of hidden language of computers and technology. So one example that I wanted to highlight of this happening that I think is really fun is something called BardBots. So BardBots is a program considered a Shakespearean introduction to computational thinking. So basically what happens is students read Shakespeare, focus on one scene, interpret and analyze that scene, and then program robots to act out the scene. So I thought that this was a really interesting example and a way that it brings together this idea that it's not that like we get rid of the traditional readings. It's that we use these two subject matters together. So it's kind of the traditional reading, but then also using this kind of new hidden technology of coding, and then bringing them together to engage students and make students excited about these subject matters. So I do have a works cited and resources list. I've listed it here for you, but it is also in the learning module, linked easy for you to click on. So the BardBots website actually has a lot of videos and kind of testimonials that it's a really interesting website. There's the CS4ELA website as well that gives more information about that program. And then the SoftAware in the English Classroom article, which is about the state constitutions that I've also linked for you in the learning module. Okay, so this completes part 1, and I will see you in part 2.